The conference room felt smaller than usual that Tuesday morning. 11 of us sat around the long table, coffee cups scattered between laptops and notepads. I was halfway through explaining the quarterly projections when Vincent, my boss, held up one hand. "Hold on," he said, his voice cutting through mine like scissors through paper. "I need everyone to understand something important." I stopped talking. The room went quiet. Vincent leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking directly at me. "We need fresh thinking around here. People who don't just repeat the same old methods." He paused, letting his words settle. "The truth is, everyone at this table is replaceable, including you, Parker." My stomach dropped, but my face stayed still. I nodded once. "Understood," I said quietly. The silence that followed felt thick and heavy. My co-worker Amanda shifted in her seat. Kyle stared at his laptop screen. Vincent waited, maybe expecting me to argue or defend myself. I didn't. "Good," he finally said, looking away. "Let's move on." The meeting continued, but I barely heard the rest. My hands rested flat on the table, steady. Inside, something shifted, not anger yet, just a cold, clear realization. After 13 years of loyalty, I'd just been reduced to a replaceable part. When the meeting ended, people filed out quickly. Nobody looked at me directly. Amanda mouthed, "I'm sorry," as she passed, but she didn't stop walking. Vincent gathered his papers, humming softly like nothing had happened. He left without a word. I sat there alone for a moment, staring at my notes. The projections I'd spent 2 weeks preparing. The cost-saving strategy I'd developed. All of it suddenly felt meaningless. I closed my laptop slowly and walked back to my desk. The office buzzed with the usual noise. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, quiet conversations near the printer. Everything felt normal, except me. Kyle rolled his chair over as I sat down. "Hey, that was rough," he whispered. "Vincent's been in a mood lately." I nodded but didn't respond. What could I say? He wheeled back to his desk, leaving me in silence. I opened my drawer and pulled out my phone. My hands were still steady. That surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking, but instead, I felt strangely calm. Vincent passed my desk without glancing over. He was already on his phone, laughing about something. I realized then that the humiliation wasn't accidental. He'd planned it. He wanted everyone to see me diminished. The drive home took 40 minutes through rush hour traffic. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind replaying Vincent's words over and over. "Everyone at this table is replaceable, including you, Parker." The way he'd said my name, like it tasted bitter. I turned onto my street and pulled into the driveway. My house looked the same as always, small, neat, quiet. I'd lived here for 8 years, paid off most of the mortgage with steady work and careful saving. Inside, I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter and sat in the dim light. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't pour a drink. I just sat there, letting the moment sink in. 13 years. I'd given this company 13 years of my life. I'd worked late when others went home. I'd fixed problems nobody else could solve. I'd trained new employees, covered for sick coworkers, and never once asked for special treatment. And Vincent had just told me I was replaceable. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda, "You okay?" I typed back, "Yeah, thanks." But I wasn't okay. I was something else entirely. Something colder and more focused than anger. Sitting in that quiet kitchen, my mind drifted back 7 years. Vincent wasn't always my boss. Back then, he was the regional manager, ambitious and reckless. He'd made a massive mistake on a client contract, promised deliverables we couldn't possibly meet, at a price that would have bankrupted our division. I found the error late one Friday night, while reviewing files. The contract was set to be finalized Monday morning. I stayed up all weekend, rebuilding the numbers, restructuring the timeline, finding a way to make it work without admitting the mistake publicly. Monday morning, I handed Vincent a revised proposal that saved both the client relationship and his reputation. He looked at me with genuine relief. "You just saved my career, Parker. I won't forget this." 3 months later, Vincent got promoted to senior director. I got a thank you email. He never mentioned it again. Now, sitting in my kitchen, I realized that history mattered more than I thought. I'd saved him once. He owed me, but instead of protecting me, he'd humiliated me in front of the entire team. That wasn't forgetfulness. That was choice. I pulled out my laptop and opened my work emails from the past 3 months. Something had been bothering me for weeks, and now I needed to see the pattern clearly. The first sign was in early February. Vincent stopped inviting me to client meetings. He said it was to give others exposure, but those meetings had always been part of my role. Then, in March, my project budget got cut by 30% without explanation. When I asked why, Vincent said we needed to be more efficient. In April, my office access was downgraded. I could no longer approve certain expenses or view department reports I'd always managed. Last week, he'd reassigned my biggest account, Kyle, a guy with 3 years of experience compared to my 13. I scrolled through my calendar. Meeting after meeting either canceled or moved without me. It wasn't subtle. It was systematic. Vincent was pushing me out, piece by piece. The meeting today wasn't the beginning. It was the next step in a process already underway. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Someone else wanted my position. Probably Kyle, who Vincent kept praising lately. And Vincent was clearing the path. The next morning, I sat in my car in the company parking lot. My hands rested on the steering wheel. I was 15 minutes early, like always. Other cars pulled in around me. Co-workers hurried toward the building. Coffee cups in hand, heads down against the morning chill. Nobody noticed me sitting there. I should have been angry. I should have been planning my resignation speech or drafting a complaint to HR, but I wasn't doing any of that. Instead, I was thinking about one conversation I'd had 6 months ago, a quiet lunch with someone I'd helped years earlier, someone who told me, "If you ever need anything at all, just ask." His name was Harrison Cole. He ran a competing firm across town, a company that had grown from nothing to industry leader in just 5 years. I'd introduced him to his first major client back when I was still building my reputation. That introduction changed his entire trajectory. He'd never forgotten it. I pulled out my phone and scrolled his number. My thumb hovered over the screen. This wasn't about revenge. It was about choices. I could quit and disappear, or I could stay and watch what happened next. I pressed dial. The phone rang twice before Harrison answered. "Parker," he said warmly. "It's been a while. How are you?" I took a breath. "I need to ask you something." His tone shifted immediately, more focused, more serious. "Go ahead." "Do you remember what you told me I could ask for someday?" I kept my voice steady. There was a long pause. I could hear him thinking, considering the weight of my question. "I do," he said finally. "Are you asking now?" "Yes." Another pause. Then what happened? I didn't explain everything. I just said, "I think it's time for a change. I want to talk to you first." Harrison didn't ask for details. He didn't push. He simply said, "Come see me tomorrow after hours. We'll talk properly." "Thank you," I said. "Parker," he added before hanging up, "if you're calling me now, it means you're serious. I take that seriously, too." I ended the call and sat in the quiet car. The clock on the dashboard read 8:43 a.m. time to go inside. I gathered my things and stepped out into the cold morning air. I wouldn't quit. Not yet. I'd stay and watch Vincent finish what he started. I walked into the office like nothing had changed. I greeted the receptionist, grabbed coffee from the break room, and settled at my desk exactly at 9. Vincent arrived 10 minutes later, laughing loudly with someone from accounting. He glanced my way briefly, then looked past me like I was furniture. I opened my laptop and started working on the monthly report. My tasks were smaller now, less critical, but I did them with the same care I always had. Amanda stopped by my desk around 10. "Hey, do you have a minute?" "Sure," I said. She hesitated, glancing toward Vincent's office. "I just wanted to say, yesterday was unfair. We all know how much you've done for this team." I smiled gently. "I appreciate that." She wanted to say more, I could tell, but Vincent walked past just then. Amanda straightened and walked away quickly. I returned to my work, fingers moving steadily across the keyboard. By the end of the day, I'd completed everything assigned to me. I'd answered every email. I'd fixed a problem Kyle had created in the scheduling system without mentioning it to anyone. I shut down my computer at exactly 5:30 and stood to leave. Vincent was still in his office, door half open. I could see him on the phone, gesturing dramatically. I walked out without saying goodbye. Tomorrow, I'd meet Harrison. Tonight, I'd simply wait. The next morning, I arrived even earlier than usual, 6:45. The parking lot was nearly empty. I made coffee and sat at my desk, reviewing files I created years ago, systems I'd built, processes I'd streamlined, all of it still running, still saving the company money and time. Vincent arrived at 8:30, looking surprised to see me already working. "You're here early," he said, not quite a question. "Just catching up?" I replied without looking up. He lingered for a moment, then walked to his office. At 9, he called me in. I grabbed my notepad and went. "Close the door," he said. I did. Vincent leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I'm assigning you a special project. We need a complete audit of the Brennan account. Full review, discrepancy report, recommendations. I need it by Friday." Today was Wednesday. The Brennan account was a mess. Poorly managed for years, full of conflicting data and missing records. It would take a full team a month to sort out properly. He was setting me up to fail. "Understood," I said calmly. "I'll get started." Vincent smiled slightly. "Good. Let me know if it's too much." I returned to my desk and opened the Brennan files. They were worse than I remembered, but I didn't panic. I'd handled worse before. By Thursday afternoon, I completed the audit. I worked through lunch, stayed late Tuesday night, and came in early Wednesday morning. I cross-referenced every transaction, tracked down missing invoices, identified the discrepancies, and built a clear, concise report with actionable recommendations. Friday morning, I placed the finished report on Vincent's desk before he arrived. When he walked in at 9, he saw it immediately. "This is done." He picked it up, flipping through pages. "Yes," I said, "everything you requested." His expression shifted from surprise to something harder. He scanned the report, clearly looking for mistakes. He wouldn't find any. "I'll review this," he said dismissively. "Of course." I returned to my desk. An hour later, Vincent forwarded the report to upper management without comment. No praise. No acknowledgement. By afternoon, I received an email from the CFO. "Excellent work on the Brennan audit. Exactly what we needed." Vincent didn't mention it. Instead, that evening, he sent me another assignment. Restructure the entire client database by Monday. Another impossible task. I read the email twice, then closed my laptop. Tonight, I'd meet Harrison. I drove across town to Harrison's office building, a sleek, modern structure with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. His company, Apex Solutions, occupied the top 3 floors. The receptionist greeted me warmly. "Mr. Cole is expecting you. 10th floor, corner office." I took the elevator up. The doors opened to a quiet, sophisticated space. Nothing like my cramped office with its flickering fluorescent lights and worn carpet. Harrison stood when I entered. He was older than me by a decade, with gray at his temples and sharp, intelligent eyes. "Parker," he said, shaking my hand firmly. Good to see you. Sit. We sat in leather chairs near the window. The city lights glittered below us. Tell me what's happening, Harrison said simply. I explained everything. The budget cuts, the reassigned projects, the meeting where Vincent called me replaceable, the impossible task designed to make me fail. Harrison listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. How long have you been with them? 13 years. And Vincent? 7 years since I saved his career. 3 years as my direct supervisor. Harrison leaned back. You're being phased out. Methodically. I know. What do you want? I met his eyes. I want to leave on my terms, with my reputation intact. Harrison stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. I owe you, Parker. You know that. He turned to face me. That client you introduced me to? That connection built the foundation of everything we have now. I remembered that day clearly. It was 8 years ago. Harrison was running a scrappy startup, struggling to land credible accounts. I'd met him at an industry conference and saw something in him. Sharp instinct, genuine integrity, relentless drive. I had a client who needed exactly what Harrison offered. I made the introduction. No commission, no expectation. Just a belief that good people deserve chances. Harrison had turned that one client into 3, then 10, then 50. Within 5 years, Apex Solutions became the fastest growing firm in our industry. I never forgot what you did, Harrison said quietly. You didn't have to help me. You gained nothing from it. But you did it anyway. He returned to his seat. Here's what I can offer. A senior position at Apex. You'd oversee client strategy, manage a team of 12, and help shape how we expand over the next 3 years. The salary is 40% more than you're making now, full benefits, and equity options. I blinked. That's generous. It's fair, Harrison corrected. You're skilled, experienced, and from what I hear, you're one of the sharpest strategists in the industry. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity. What do you need from me? Harrison smiled. A decision, but not tonight. I drove home that night with my mind racing. 40% more salary. A real team. Respect. But something held me back from accepting immediately. Not doubt, exactly, but the need to see Vincent's plan play out fully. I'd spent 13 years building systems at my current company. I knew every process, every client relationship, every shortcut and strength. If I left now, Vincent would claim credit for all of it. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. At home, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Not emotionally, just factually. I created a spreadsheet with dates, decisions, and outcomes. Every project Vincent had reassigned. Every budget cut. Every meeting I'd been excluded from. I pulled emails going back 6 months, organized by topic and timeline. Patterns emerged clearly. Vincent hadn't just been pushing me out. He'd been systematically erasing my contributions while positioning Kyle as my replacement. In one email chain from March, Vincent praised Kyle for innovative thinking on a client proposal. I scrolled up. The proposal was mine. I'd written it 2 weeks earlier and shared it in a team meeting. Kyle had simply reworded it. In another email, Vincent took credit for the cost-saving strategy I developed last quarter, presenting it to upper management as his own idea. I saved everything to a secure folder, backed up twice. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Over the next few days, I dug deeper into company records. I had access to historical files, old personnel reports, archived emails. I started noticing names, people who'd left the company suddenly over the past 3 years, good employees, experienced professionals. All of them had worked under Vincent. I found Rebecca Torres, a project manager who'd resigned abruptly 18 months ago. Her exit interview cited creative differences and lack of growth opportunities. Then Marcus Chun, a senior analyst who'd left without another job lined up. His exit interview mentioned communication challenges with management. Then Sandra Kim, an account director who'd been with the company for 9 years before disappearing one Monday. Her exit interview was marked, declined to comment. I cross-referenced the dates. Each departure happened within weeks of Vincent publicly criticizing them in meetings or reassigning their major projects. I wasn't special. This was Vincent's pattern. He built people up when he needed them, then tore them down when they became inconvenient or expensive. I found an industry forum where former employees sometimes posted anonymously. One comment from 6 months ago caught my attention. If you work under VH at Titan Works, document everything. He'll rewrite history to suit himself. VH. Vincent Hammond. I sat back, staring at my screen. I wasn't his first target. I was just next in line. Friday afternoon, Vincent called me into his office again. "Parker, sit down." His tone was friendly now, almost warm. "I wanted to check in with you. I know this week's been demanding." I sat. "I'm managing fine." Good, good." He smiled. "Look, I realized the other day in the meeting might have come across harsh. That wasn't personal. I just need everyone to understand we're in a competitive industry. Complacency kills companies." I nodded slowly. "I understand." "Great." He leaned forward. "Here's the thing. I need to know you're a team player. We got some changes coming, and I need people who won't cause problems or resist new directions." "I'm not looking to cause problems," I said calmly. Vincent studied my face. "Glad to hear it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Stay focused. Don't overthink things." "Of course." He stood, signaling the conversation was over. I left his office and returned to my desk. 10 minutes later, an email arrived from Vincent to the entire team. Reminder: all client communications must be approved by management before sending. Effective immediately. It was copied to HR. I read it twice. That policy didn't exist before. It was specifically designed to slow me down and limit my direct contact with clients I'd worked with for years. I saved the email without responding. That evening, I received an unexpected email from the CFO's office. "Can you provide a brief overview of cost-saving measures implemented in your division over the past year?" I read it carefully. This wasn't routine. The CFO didn't usually reach out to individual employees for summaries. I drafted a clear, factual response listing every strategy I developed. The vendor renegotiation that saved 18% annually, the scheduling optimization that reduced overtime by 23%, the client retention program that increased renewals by 14%. I attached supporting data and sent it. Within an hour, I received a reply. "Thank you. This is very helpful." I didn't mention it to Vincent. Monday morning, Vincent called me into his office. His expression was tight. "Did you send something to the CFO's office?" he asked. "They requested information about cost-saving measures." I said, "I provided it. You should have run that by me first." The email came directly from the CFO. I didn't think it required approval. Vincent's jaw tightened. "Going forward, copy me on any communication with upper management." Understood. Understood. I left his office knowing I'd done nothing wrong. But Vincent was rattled. Someone above him was asking questions, and my name was part of the conversation. That afternoon, he contradicted himself in an email, telling the team that independent initiative is valued and encouraged. I saved both emails. Wednesday morning, a problem emerged. One of our largest clients, Westfield Industries, called to complain about a billing error. They'd been overcharged by nearly $8,000 due to a miscalculation in the contract renewal. The mistake came from a shortcut Vincent had approved 3 months earlier, a streamlined billing process that eliminated the secondary review I'd always conducted. I'd warned him at the time that removing that safeguard could lead to errors. He dismissed my concern as old-fashioned thinking. Now, Westfield was threatening to terminate the contract. Vincent called an emergency meeting. Kyle, Amanda, and I sat in the conference room while Vincent paced. "How did this happen?" he demanded. Nobody answered immediately. Vincent turned to Kyle. "You've been managing Westfield recently. Did you catch this?" Kyle stammered. I followed the new billing process you approved." Vincent's expression darkened. "And nobody thought to double-check?" I stayed silent. I could have caught it if I still had access to those accounts. But Vincent had reassigned Westfield to Kyle. Vincent looked at Amanda. "Where was the oversight?" Amanda glanced at me nervously, then back at Vincent. The new process removed the secondary review. Parker used to handle that. Vincent's eyes snapped to me. Why didn't you say something? I met his gaze calmly. I did. 3 months ago when you introduced the new process. You said it was more efficient. Vincent's face reddened. I don't recall that conversation. I didn't argue. I just sat there quietly. He dismissed us without resolving anything. That evening, I met Harrison again at a small restaurant downtown. We sat in a corner booth, away from other diners. You look tired, Harrison observed. It's been a long week. He nodded. Have you made a decision? I hesitated. I want to accept your offer. But I need to ask, how quickly could I start? We could have you on board within 2 weeks if needed. Why? I explained the situation at my current company, the accelerating pressure, the billing error, the way Vincent was tightening the noose. Harrison listened carefully. If you wait too long, he'll push you out on his terms. You'll lose leverage. I know, but if I leave now, he rewrites the story. He'll tell everyone I couldn't handle the pressure or that I was underperforming. He'll take credit for everything I built. Harrison leaned back. So you want to wait until the truth is undeniable? Yes. He considered this. That's risky. What if he fires you first? He won't, I said quietly. Not yet. He needs someone to blame when things go wrong. That's why he's keeping me around. Harrison smiled slightly. You've thought this through. I've had time to think. All right, Harrison said. The offer stands. When you're ready, call me. But Parker, don't wait too long. The next 2 weeks became a strange double life. By day, I remained the reliable employee Vincent could ignore. I completed tasks, attended meetings, and kept my head down. I followed every rule, documented every decision, and never complained. By night, I prepared. I organized my portfolio, updated my certifications, and quietly reached out to industry contacts. Not to gossip, just to remind people I existed. I also continued documenting everything at work. Vincent's contradictions, his blame shifting, his pattern of pushing out experienced employees while promoting less qualified people who wouldn't challenge him. Kyle started avoiding me. I'd catch him looking over nervously when Vincent called him into closed-door meetings. He knew he was being positioned as my replacement, and it made him uncomfortable. Amanda, on the other hand, grew bolder. She started forwarding me emails Vincent sent to the team, emails that contradicted previous directives or shifted blame unfairly. Someone needs to see this, she whispered one afternoon, sliding a printed email onto my desk. I thanked her quietly and added it to my growing file. One evening, as I was leaving, I overheard Vincent on the phone in his office. Just need a few more weeks to transition everything. Then we can move forward with the restructure. I didn't stop to listen further. I already knew what he meant. The following Monday, I received an unexpected email from HR requesting a meeting to discuss workplace dynamics and team cohesion. I arrived at the HR office at the scheduled time. 2 representatives sat across from me, Patricia from Employee Relations and James from Compliance. Thank you for coming, Parker, Patricia began. We wanted to touch base about your experience on Vincent's team lately. I chose my words carefully. What specifically would you like to know? James leaned forward slightly. We've heard concerns about communication challenges and potential personality conflicts. We want to make sure everyone feels supported. I understood immediately. This wasn't about supporting me. This was about protecting Vincent. I'm not aware of any personality conflicts, I said calmly. I complete my assignments, meet deadlines, and maintain professional relationships with my colleagues. Patricia smiled tightly. Of course. We're just checking in. Sometimes when there are organizational changes, people feel unsettled. I understand change is part business, I replied. They asked a few more vague questions, clearly trying to get me to complain or express frustration. I didn't take the bait. Finally, Patricia said, if you ever feel there are issues that need addressing, our door is always open. Thank you. I appreciate that. I left the meeting knowing exactly what had happened. Vincent had planted seeds with HR, framing me as a potential problem before I could become one. But I'd given them nothing to use against me. 2 days later, another team meeting. 12 of us crammed into the conference room, laptops open, coffee cooling in paper cups. Vincent stood at the head of the table, presenting the quarterly outlook. He talked about efficiency, innovation, and evolving beyond outdated methods. Then he paused and looked around the room. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Nobody here is irreplaceable. The moment we start thinking we're indispensable is the moment we stop growing. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Vincent's eyes landed on me. We have to be willing to adapt, to learn from the next generation, to recognize when our approach is holding the team back. Kyle stared at his laptop. Amanda's jaw tightened. Vincent smiled. That's how we stay competitive. That's how we win. Quiet laughter rippled around the table. Forced, uncomfortable. I nodded once, just like the first time. Understood. Vincent looked momentarily thrown by my calm response. He'd expected defensiveness. Instead, I gave him nothing. The meeting continued. I took notes, asked one clarifying question about a budget projection, and said nothing else. Afterward, as people filtered out, Kyle approached me. Parker, I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? I asked. He hesitated. For everything. I understood. Kyle wasn't a bad person. He was just young and ambitious, and Vincent had given him an opportunity. Kyle didn't realize yet that Vincent's opportunities came with invisible costs. It's okay, I told him. Just do good work. He nodded and left quickly. That weekend, I had a formal interview with Apex Solutions, not with Harrison. He'd already made the offer. This was for HR records, a professional formality. The interview took place at Apex's headquarters. I met with Harrison's leadership team, the director of operations, the head of client services, and the chief strategy officer. They asked smart questions. They wanted to know about my approach to problem solving, how I handled conflict, what my long-term career goals looked like. I answered honestly. I didn't badmouth Vincent or my current company. I simply explained that I was looking for an environment where strategic thinking was valued and where experience was seen as an asset, not a liability. At the end, the strategy officer asked, "Why did you stay at your current company for 13 years?" I thought carefully before answering. Loyalty. I believed in the work we were doing. I believed that consistency and dedication mattered. I paused. I still believe those things. But I've learned that loyalty has to be mutual to be meaningful. They exchanged glances. The operations director nodded slightly. When could you start if we move forward? The strategy officer asked. 2 weeks' notice would be standard, I said, but I'd want to ensure a clean transition. I don't believe in burning bridges, even when bridges might deserve burning. The operations director asked with a slight smile. I smiled back, especially then. After the interview, Harrison walked me to my car. The sun was setting, painting the parking lot in shades of gold and amber. That went well, he said. They were impressed. Thank you. Harrison leaned against my car. They asked me why I was so insistent on hiring you. I told them what you did for me 8 years ago, but I also told them that wasn't why I wanted you on our team. No. I want you here because you're exactly what we need. Someone who thinks long-term, who values substance over flash, who understands that real leadership means building others up, not tearing them down. I felt something loosen in my chest. For 13 years, I'd worked for someone who saw me as competition. Harrison saw me as an ally. They're going to request references, Harrison continued. Standard procedure. I know that's tricky given your situation. I have people I trust, I said. One is still at my current company, but she's discreet. Harrison nodded. Be careful. If Vincent finds out you're interviewing elsewhere, I know. He studied my face. You're still waiting for something, aren't you? For him to fully show his hand. I want the record clear, I said quietly. I want there to be no doubt about who built what and why I'm leaving. Harrison sighed. Just don't wait until there's nothing left to salvage. Monday morning. I sent a carefully worded email to Amanda, asking if she'd be willing to serve as a reference. I didn't specify why, just that I was exploring opportunities. She replied within an hour, "Absolutely. I'd be honored." And "Parker, it's about time." I smiled at that. The second reference was a client I'd worked with for 7 years, the CEO of a mid-sized manufacturing firm. I'd saved his company nearly $500,000 through strategic vendor negotiations. He'd told me repeatedly I was the only reason he stayed with our company. I called him directly. "Thomas, I need to ask you something." "Anything, Parker. You know that. I'm considering a move to another firm. Would you be comfortable serving as a reference?" There was a brief pause. "Is this because of Vincent?" I didn't answer directly. "It's time for a change." "Say no more," Thomas said firmly. "I'll tell them the truth, that you're the best strategist I've worked with in 20 years, and that Vincent Hammond is a fool for not recognizing it." "Thomas, I mean it. You've earned this. Whatever you need from me, you've got it." I thanked him and ended the call feeling steadier. But there was risk. If Vincent learned I was using a client as a reference, he could retaliate by restricting my remaining access or accelerating my exit. I decided to trust the process anyway. Tuesday afternoon, Vincent called an impromptu all-staff meeting. The entire department gathered in the largest conference room, nearly 30 people. Vincent stood at the front, looking pleased with himself. "I have an exciting announcement," he began. "We're restructuring our operations to better align with market demands and client expectations." Everyone exchanged nervous glances. Restructure was never good news. Vincent pulled up a slide showing the new organizational chart. My role, senior strategist, was listed under a new position, Director of Strategic Operations. Kyle's name was next to that director role. My position now reported to Kyle. Vincent continued talking about flattening hierarchies and empowering emerging talent. But I barely heard him. After 13 years, I would now report to someone with 3 years' experience who I personally trained. Amanda's face went pale. Another co-worker, Martin, shook his head in disbelief. Vincent wrapped up the presentation. "Questions?" Nobody spoke. "Great. This will take effect next Monday. Thank you all." As people filed out, several colleagues approached me quietly. "This is ridiculous. You should fight this. You should go to HR." I just nodded and said, "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. And Vincent knew it. He wanted me to quit, to walk away angry, giving him the narrative he needed. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. That week became the hardest test of my patience. My access to client files was reduced further. Projects I'd managed for years were reassigned without explanation. In meetings, my input was overlooked or attributed to others. Kyle tried to be respectful, but the situation was impossible. He'd ask for my advice privately, then present it as his own idea in meetings. He had no choice. Vincent was watching. By Thursday, I felt the weight of it all. Sitting at my desk, staring at the half-empty task list, I wondered if I was making a mistake. Maybe I should have just quit the day Vincent called me replaceable. Maybe staying to prove a point was just ego. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Don't let him break you. We see what's happening." Then another from Thomas, my client contact. "Heard about the restructure. That's complete BS. Let me know when you're ready to move." And finally, Harrison. "Offer still stands. Whenever you're ready." I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. Then my desk phone rang. Internal extension. Unknown number. I picked up. "This is Parker." "Parker, this is Diane from the executive office. Could you come upstairs for a moment?" My heart skipped. The executive office. That was 3 levels above Vincent. Of course. When? Now, if possible. I stood, grabbed my notepad, and headed to the elevator. This was it. Something was happening. I arrived at the executive suite, a place I'd only visited twice in 13 years. The receptionist smiled and gestured to a conference room. "They're waiting for you." Inside, I found Diane, the chief operating officer, and 2 other executives I recognized but had never spoken to directly. "Parker, thank you for coming up," Diane said warmly. Please sit. I sat, uncertain what to expect. We've been conducting an internal review, Diane began. Nothing formal, just checking on operational efficiency across departments. Your name came up several times in connection with cost-saving initiatives and process improvements. I nodded slowly. I've worked on several projects over the years. More than several, one of the executives interjected. According to the data we've reviewed, you've personally generated over $2 million in savings for this company in the past 3 years alone. I blinked. I'd never calculated the total impact. Diane continued. We want to understand your current role and future trajectory here. We understand you're now reporting to Kyle Martinez following last week's restructure. That's correct. She exchanged a glance with the others. And how do you feel about that change? This was the moment. I could complain. I could lay out everything Vincent had done. But I didn't. Change is part of growth. I said carefully. I'm focused on continuing to contribute wherever I'm needed. Diane studied me for a long moment. Parker, I'm going to be direct. We've noticed some patterns in how personnel decisions have been made in your division. We want to ensure we're retaining our strongest contributors. She paused. Is there anything you'd like us to know? I took a slow breath, considering my answer. I appreciate you asking, I said finally. I've enjoyed my time here, and I'm proud of the work I've done. I believe in doing my job well, regardless of circumstances. That's not quite what I asked, Diane said gently. I met her eyes. I know. There was a long silence. Finally, I added, if you're conducting a review of decisions in my division, the documentation should speak for itself. I've always kept detailed records of projects, communications, and outcomes. Diane nodded slowly. Thank you for your time, Parker. That's all we needed. I stood to leave, then paused at the door. May I ask, is this review connected to the billing error with Westfield Industries? The executives exchanged glances. That's part of it, Diane admitted, but it's broader than one incident. I nodded and left. Walking back to my desk, my hands trembled slightly. Something was in motion now, something beyond my control. That evening, I called Harrison. I'm ready, I said simply. You're accepting the offer? Yes. I'll submit my resignation tomorrow. Harrison paused. Are you sure? You sound like something happened. Something did, but I'm sure. All right. I'll have HR prepare the paperwork. Welcome to Apex Solutions, Parker. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. Friday morning, I arrived at work early and typed out my resignation letter. It was simple, professional, grateful. Dear Vincent, after 13 years with this company, I decided to pursue a new opportunity that aligns with my long-term career goals. My last day will be 2 weeks from today. I'm committed to ensuring a smooth transition and will make myself available to answer any questions during this period. Thank you for the opportunities I've had here. I wish the team continued success. Sincerely, Parker. I printed it, signed it, and placed it in an envelope. At 9 a.m., I walked to Vincent's office. He was on the phone, but waved me in. When he hung up, I handed him the envelope. What's this? He asked. My resignation. 2 weeks' notice. His expression flickered. Surprise, then something like triumph. He opened the envelope and read quickly. I see, he said, leaning back. New opportunity? Yes. Where? I'll be joining Apex Solutions as a senior strategy director. Vincent's face went pale. Apex was our primary competitor. Apex was winning accounts we'd lost. Apex was led by Harrison Cole, someone in the industry Vincent envied but couldn't compete with. Apex, he repeated slowly. Interesting timing. It's a good fit for my skills. Vincent's jaw tightened. Parker, let's be honest. You're upset about the restructure. I understand that. But walking away isn't the answer. I stayed silent. What if I talked to leadership about adjusting your role? We could find something that works better for you. I appreciate that, I said calmly, but I've made my decision. Vincent stood abruptly. You're making a mistake. Apex might seem appealing, but they're not offering you anything we can't match. This isn't about matching offers, Vincent. Then what is it about? I looked at him directly. It's about working somewhere my contributions are valued. His face reddened. Your contributions have always been valued here. I didn't argue. I just said, my last day is the 28th. I'll make sure everything is documented for whoever takes over my projects. I left his office without waiting for a response. Within an hour of submitting my resignation, the office atmosphere shifted. Word spread quickly. Amanda stopped by my desk. You did it. I did. Where are you going? Apex Solutions. Her eyes widened. Parker, that's incredible. You deserve this. Kyle appeared next, looking miserable. I just heard. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said. You didn't create this situation. Still, I feel like I'm part why you're leaving. I shook my head. You're not. This has nothing to do with you. He lingered a moment longer, then returned to his desk. By lunchtime, Vincent had called an emergency meeting with Kyle and 2 other senior team members. I wasn't invited. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I watched Vincent gesturing emphatically, clearly agitated. An hour later, problems began surfacing. The Westfield billing error that Vincent had buried? Their legal team formally escalated it to our executive office, threatening contract termination, a shortcut Vincent had approved last month. Eliminating a quality control step in client onboarding, it resulted in 2 new clients receiving incorrect service packages, and both were demanding refunds. And the streamlined reporting process Vincent had implemented to increase efficiency, it created a data gap that made our quarterly projections inaccurate by nearly 12%. All of it, everything breaking at once, was connected to decisions Vincent had made, decisions I quietly warned against but didn't fight publicly. Leadership started asking questions. And this time, Vincent had no one to blame. By the end of my first week of notice, the cracks in Vincent's management became impossible to ignore. Westfield officially terminated their contract, citing repeated billing errors and poor communication. That was a 7-figure account, one of our largest. The 2 new clients who received wrong service packages both escalated to legal. Our company now faced potential breach of contract claims. And the quarterly projections Vincent had presented to board, they were so inaccurate that the CFO demanded a full audit of his division. Vincent tried deflecting. In a tense meeting with leadership, he suggested the errors stemmed from insufficient oversight during transition period. That's when my name came up. Parker was responsible for quality control until recently. Vincent said, trying to shift blame, but Diane, the COO, cut him off. Parker hasn't had access to those systems for 2 months. Vincent, that's documented. These issues all occurred under your new processes. I heard this later from Amanda, who overheard it through the wall. Vincent tried another angle. Well, perhaps Parker's departure indicates she knew problems were developing. Diane's response was swift. Or perhaps her departure indicates she saw the direction leadership was heading and made a smart choice. Leadership requested documentation of all decisions made in the past 6 months. Vincent looked trapped, because everything he'd done, every shortcut, every reassignment, every process change, was documented, and none of it looked good under scrutiny. During my second and final week, I worked quietly, compiling transition documents and answering questions from the people taking over my projects. I didn't gloat. I didn't spread gossip. I just did my job. But Vincent was unraveling. He called me into his office Wednesday morning, the day before my departure. His expression was strained. Parker, I need to ask you something. I sat down. Go ahead. These issues coming up, Westfield, the onboarding errors, the projections. Did you report any concerns about my decisions to upper management? I met his eyes calmly. I documented concerns internally as I always have. I shared them with you directly in emails and meetings. You chose not to address them. So you went around me. No. Leadership asked me for information. I provided factual answers. His face flushed. You're sabotaging me on your way out. Vincent, I said quietly, I'm not sabotaging anything. The decisions you made are having natural consequences. I'm not responsible for those outcomes. You are. He leaned forward. If you just done your job instead of documenting every little thing. I did do my job for 13 years, thoroughly, professionally, and yes, I documented everything because that's what good employees do. Vincent stared at me, jaw tight. This is revenge because I called you replaceable. No, I said standing. This is consequences because you treated people like they were replaceable. There's a difference. I left his office for the last time. Thursday, my final day, arrived with strange quietness. I packed my personal items into a small box, a framed photo, a coffee mug, a plant that had survived 13 years on my desk. Amanda hugged me. You're going to do amazing things at Apex. Thank you for everything. Kyle approached, looking genuinely regretful. I'm sorry things ended this way. It's okay, Kyle. Just remember, how you treat people matters. Don't forget that. He nodded solemnly. At 3 p.m., I logged out of my computer for the last time and carried my box to the elevator. Vincent wasn't there to say goodbye. He was in a closed meeting with Diane and 2 other executives, a meeting that had been scheduled suddenly that morning. I didn't need to know what was being discussed. The pattern was clear. As the elevator doors closed, I felt no anger, no bitterness, just relief. I'd left on my terms, with my integrity intact, heading towards something better. That evening, I received a text from Amanda. Vincent just got walked out by security. They're calling it a voluntary separation, but everyone knows what really happened. I read the message twice, then set my phone down. Justice, when it comes quietly, is still justice. Over the weekend, I received a call from Diane. Parker, I wanted to reach out personally, she began. I know you've already moved on, but I felt you deserved to know what happened. I appreciate that. We conducted a full review of Vincent's management practices following several escalating issues. What we found was troubling, a pattern of taking credit for others' work, pushing out experienced employees, making decisions that prioritize appearance over substance, and systematically undermining anyone who questioned his approach. She paused. Your name came up repeatedly, not as a problem, but as someone who consistently tried to maintain standards while being actively undermined. I just did my job, I said. I know, and that's exactly why we're having this conversation. Parker, I want to formally apologize on behalf of the company. You should never have been put in that position. I was quiet for a moment. Thank you for saying that. Vincent is no longer with the company. We're rebuilding the division with new leadership. If you were open to returning. I'm not, I said gently, but I appreciate the offer. I understand. You're starting at Apex Monday. Yes. Then I wish you the very best. And Parker, if you ever need anything, a reference, a contact, anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. We ended the call on good terms. I sat in my living room, staring at the evening light through the windows. 13 years finished, but not wasted. Monday morning, I walked into Apex Solutions, wearing professional confidence I hadn't felt in months. Harrison met me in the lobby personally. Welcome to your first day. Thank you. He walked me through the office, introducing me to my new team. They were smart, engaged, eager to learn. No side eyes, no subtle competition, just genuine collaboration. My office was bright, modern, with a view of the river. Nothing like the cramped cube I'd left behind. Harrison paused at my door. You'll meet your direct reports this afternoon. They're excited to work with you. I'm excited too. He smiled. Parker, I'm going to tell you something. I didn't hire you as a favor. I hired you because you're exactly what this company needs. Don't ever doubt that. Something tight in my chest finally loosened. I won't. That afternoon, I met my team of 12 strategists. I listened more than I talked, asked about their goals, their challenges, their ideas. At the end of the meeting, one of them, a young woman named Claire, said, "We've heard really good things about you. We're glad you're here." I'm glad to be here. I replied honestly, and for the first time in years, I meant it completely. Over the next few weeks, my old life faded into memory while my new life took shape. At Apex, I was valued. My ideas were heard. My experience was respected. I wasn't competing for relevance. I was building something meaningful. Harrison involved me in strategic decisions from day one. We met weekly to discuss company direction, client expansion, long-term vision. Your insights are exactly what we needed, he told me after one particularly productive meeting. You see connections others miss. My team thrived. We streamlined 3 major client accounts, implemented a new quality assurance protocol, and identified cost-saving measures that would save Apex over $1 million annually. Claire, the young strategist, came to my office one afternoon. I just want to say thank you. For what? For actually listening to us. For treating our ideas like they matter. My last boss, she stopped. Let's just say it's different here. I understood. We both escaped environments that diminished us. Now we were somewhere better. Meanwhile, word filtered back about my old company. The division Vincent had led was being rebuilt from scratch. Kai had been reassigned to a different team. Several of Vincent's other hires had left or been let go. Amanda texted me. They hired someone new to run the division. She's great, actually listens, actually cares. Wish you were here to see it. I texted back. I'm glad they found someone good. You deserve that. 3 months into my new position, I received an unexpected email from the company's board of directors. Subject: recognition and appreciation. Parker, we wanted to formally acknowledge the impact you made since joining Apex Solutions. Your strategic thinking has contributed to a 22% improvement in client retention and over $1.3 million in operational savings. More importantly, your leadership style has set a standard for how we approach collaboration and team development. As a token of our appreciation, we're pleased to offer you additional equity in the company and a seat on our strategic planning committee. Thank you for being exactly who we hoped you'd be. I read the email 3 times, overwhelmed. Harrison called me immediately after. Did you see the board's message? I did. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he laughed. You've earned this, Parker. Every bit of it. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. 3 months ago, I was told I was replaceable, that my 13 years of loyalty and hard work meant nothing. Now I was here, valued, respected, thriving. Vincent had tried to diminish me. Instead, he'd freed me. I thought about sending him a thank you note, ironically, but I decided against it. He didn't deserve my energy anymore, not even in gratitude. 6 months after leaving my old company, I was invited to speak at an industry conference about strategic innovation. The room was packed. Over 300 professionals from competing firms, all listening as I explained the cost-saving framework my team had developed at Apex. During the Q&A session, someone asked, "What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career?" I thought carefully before answering. The biggest lesson is this. Your value doesn't depend on whether someone else recognizes it. It depends on the quality of your work, the integrity of your approach, and your willingness to walk away from environments that diminish you. The room was silent. I spent 13 years at a company where I was eventually told I was replaceable. And you know what? That person was right. Not about me being replaceable, but about the fact that no one is irreplaceable in a toxic environment. The real question isn't whether you're replaceable. It's whether the place you're working deserves your irreplaceable contributions. The applause was loud and sustained. After the presentation, several people approached me, some to share their own stories of workplace toxicity, others to ask how I'd found the courage to leave. It wasn't courage. I told one woman who'd been struggling with a similar situation. It was clarity. Once you see the pattern clearly, staying becomes harder than leaving. A year after my departure, I received a LinkedIn message from Kyle. Parker, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because I owe you an apology. I didn't fully understand what was happening when Vincent restructured things. I thought I was being given opportunity, but I didn't realize it was at your expense. I've learned a lot since then, mostly about what kind of leader I don't want to become. I've actually left the company now. I'm at a smaller firm where the culture is healthier. I think about the advice you gave me on your last day a lot. How you treat people matters. You were right. Thank you for being gracious when you had every right to be angry. that taught me more than any management book ever could. I read his message twice, then replied, "Kyle, thank you for reaching out. I'm glad you're somewhere that values you properly. You're talented. You just needed to be in an environment that didn't force you to compromise your integrity to succeed. I wish you the best." It felt good to release that final piece of resentment. That evening, Harrison and I had dinner to celebrate Apex's record-breaking quarter. "You know what's interesting?" he said, raising his glass. "When I first offered you this position, I thought I was doing you a favor, repaying an old debt. And now I realize you did me the favor. You've elevated this entire company." I smiled. "We did it together." "That's exactly what I mean," Harrison said. "You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most important one." That's what Vincent never understood. I thought about Vincent briefly, not with anger, but with distance. I'd heard through industry channels that he'd struggled to find another position. His reputation had preceded him. References had been checked. Patterns had been exposed. I didn't take satisfaction in his downfall, but I didn't feel guilty either. Sometimes consequences are just consequences. 2 years after walking out of that fluorescent-lit office, I stood in Apex Solutions' newest conference room, looking out over the city skyline. My team had just closed the largest client contract in company history. My strategies had directly contributed to Apex becoming the third largest firm in our industry. But more than the numbers, I was proud of the culture we'd built. People stayed at Apex because they felt valued. Experienced professionals weren't pushed out. They were elevated. New talent wasn't pitted against veterans. They learned from them. Harrison knocked lightly on the open door. "Got a minute?" "Always." He joined me at the window. "I've been thinking about that day you called me. 2 years ago. You asked if I remember what I told you about asking for anything someday. I remember. You know what struck me about that call? You weren't asking me to rescue you. You were asking me to give you a platform to do what you do best." I nodded slowly. "That's rare," Harrison continued. "Most people in your situation would have wanted revenge or validation. You wanted opportunity." "Revenge is exhausting," I said. "Opportunity is energizing." He smiled. "Vincent called me once, about 6 months after you joined us. He wanted to know if we were hiring. I told him we'd keep his resume on file." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" For about 30 seconds. Then I deleted it. We both laughed. Later that evening, sitting in my home office, I opened my laptop and saw an email from Amanda. She'd been promoted to senior manager at my old company under the new leadership. "Parker, I wanted you to know, we reference your systems and strategies constantly. You built something that lasted. The new director calls you the gold standard. Thought you want to know your legacy is still teaching people how to do things right." I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, thinking about that team meeting 2 years ago. Vincent had told me I was replaceable. He was wrong. Not because I was irreplaceable. Everyone is, eventually. But because he confused replaceability with disposability. He thought people were interchangeable parts, valuable only until they became inconvenient. What he didn't understand was that the best people aren't held by fear or hierarchy. They're held by respect, opportunity, and purpose. When those things disappear, the best people don't collapse. They just find better places to grow. I'd made one phone call after that humiliating meeting. Not to complain, not to plot revenge, not to tear anyone down. I'd called to ask for a chance to prove what I'd always known. That quiet competence, patient integrity, and strategic thinking are worth more than noise, ego, and shortcuts. Vincent taught me I was replaceable. Harrison taught me I was valuable. But the most important lesson I learned myself: your worth isn't determined by whether someone sees it. It's determined by whether you honor it. I didn't need Vincent to acknowledge my contributions. I didn't need vindication or apologies. I just needed to walk away with my name intact and build something better. Turns out, the most replaceable thing in that conference room wasn't me. It was disrespect. And eventually, disrespect always replaces itself with consequences.